Darkness. A hollow rhythmic knocking starts. 3 taps, a pause, 3 taps. It echoes like it's bouncing around an empty ribcage, a sound that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. What if the very ground beneath our feet holds secrets far older and more unsettling than we can imagine? For 21 years, Reverend Edward Merriweather kept watch over Langenhoe Church. Then the knocks began, 3 at dusk, 3 at dawn, until the lamps started swaying and a woman in grey walked straight out of the chancel wall. This is England's most haunted chapel, a place where the veil between worlds thins to a whisper. I'm Sam. Welcome back to the channel where we chase the stories history tried to bury, the whispers that refuse to fade into silence. Today, we're not just exploring a building, we're stepping into a living enigma, tramping across the desolate Essex marshes to a tiny flint church locals still call the gateway for the restless. This isn't about cheap thrills or manufactured scares. This is about the facts, the feelings, and the evidence that never quite made the papers, the truths that linger in the shadows of forgotten archives. Grab a mug, dim the lights, and prepare to question everything you thought you knew about the sacred and the spectral. I've got scans of the original parish logbook, personal letters, and even scientific reports that will make you spill your coffee or perhaps just shiver. We delve into the heart of a mystery that has perplexed clergy, scientists, and villagers for generations. A story that challenges the very boundaries of belief. Langenhoe sits east of Colchester, a place where the land itself seems to hold its breath. It's a landscape of stark beauty, ringed by fields that were once, long ago, swallowed by the sea, only to be reclaimed by the relentless march of time and tide. St. Mary the Less, the church at the heart of our tale, looks harmless enough at first glance, a stubby ancient tower, red tiles weathered by centuries of wind and rain, and old yew trees leaning like gossiping neighbors, their gnarled branches reaching towards the heavens as if in silent prayer or desperate warning. But don't let its quaint exterior deceive you. The marshes here have a long memory, a dark history. For centuries they gave back every sailor the sea stole, their bodies washing ashore, destined for the consecrated ground of St. Mary's. In 2018, ground-penetrating radar revealed a chilling truth. More than 40 unmarked graves lay beneath the nave alone, a silent congregation of the forgotten. Locals whisper that in Langenhoe, the line between the living and the dead has always been tissue-thin, a permeable membrane easily breached by those who refuse to rest. This church, they say, is not just a place of worship, but a sentinel guarding a liminal space. The year is 1937. The world teeters on the brink of war, but in the quiet academic halls of Cambridge, Reverend Edward Merriweather dreams of a peaceful parish life. He rolls into Langenhoe, a man of intellect and faith, his young wife Celia by his side, her sketchbook already open, eager to capture the rustic charm of their new home. Their arrival was meant to be a fresh start, a quiet chapter in a life dedicated to God. Their first Sunday service was a scene of stark reality. 12 parishioners huddled against the cold, rain you could drown in lashing against the ancient flint walls, and a faint, inexplicable whiff of lavender water drifting from nowhere, a scent out of place in the damp, musty air. Edward, ever the pragmatist, dismissed it as a draft or an old perfume bottle. Yet the vestry log, in his own neat hand, records a curious observation. Footsteps heard in the rafters, though no bell rang. He blamed bats, of course. He would learn, slowly and painfully, that some presences cannot be so easily explained away. The church, it seemed, had its own inhabitants, long before the Merryweathers arrived. Exactly 1 month later, the subtle anomalies gave way to something undeniable. It was evensong, the twilight service, a time of quiet reflection. In the midst of the Nunc Dimittis, a hymn of peace and departure, 3 measured knocks echoed through the vestry door. Not a tentative tap, but a deliberate, resonant sound, as if a heavy fist struck the ancient oak. Edward, startled but composed, opened the door, only to find an empty corridor, the silence outside as profound as the sound had been within. The next night, the knocking returned, more insistent. Edward, his curiosity piqued, pressed his palm to the oak door and felt it vibrate, a deep, thrumming sensation, like someone was drumming on the other side, trying to communicate. The verger, a man of practical solutions, nailed the latch shut, convinced it was just a prank or the wind. But by morning, the wood was split clean, a jagged fissure running through the sturdy timber. Something wanted in, or perhaps something desperately wanted out. The rhythmic insistence of the knocks began to chip away at Edward's rational mind, replacing certainty with a creeping dread. By 1939, the world had plunged into war, and Langenhoe, though remote, felt its distant tremors. Blackout curtains covered the stained glass windows, plunging the church into an even deeper gloom. One Wednesday, during a quiet afternoon, the oil lamps hanging from the nave ceiling began to swing, not erratically, but together, slow and synchronized, their chains silent, defying any logical explanation. Edward's 9-year-old daughter, Joan, a sensitive and observant child, later recounted to a newspaper reporter that they moved like they were listening to music only they could hear, a spectral waltz in the dim light. 2 weeks later, the Grey Ladies arrived. The south door, usually stiff and creaking, opened with an almost imperceptible sigh. A woman, cloaked in Victorian mourning attire, glided up the aisle, her movements fluid and silent, as if she were merely a ripple in the air. She stopped at the choir stalls, her gaze fixed on Edward, a faint, almost imperceptible smile gracing her lips. A tired, finally kind of smile, as if a long journey had at last ended. Then, as quickly as she appeared, she vanished, dissolving into the ancient stone of the chancel wall. 30 witnesses, including the Archdeacon's visiting secretary, stood frozen in disbelief. The parish register for 14th October 1939, in a classic English understatement, simply noted disruption during the Sanctus. Weather fair. The Grey Lady had made her presence known, and Langenhoe Church would never be the same. The Archdeacon, a man of God but also of order, could not ignore such a widespread and unsettling event. He dispatched a team, a small group of clergy and laymen, to investigate. They stayed 3 nights, their initial skepticism slowly eroding with each passing hour. On the second night, the chancel, the very heart of the church, experienced a dramatic and inexplicable temperature drop, plummeting from a comfortable 14 degrees Celsius to a bone-chilling 3 degrees Celsius in 90 seconds flat. Their breath plumed in the frigid air, and the very stones seemed to weep with cold. Their official report, still sealed in the diocesan archive, remains a testament to the inexplicable. Its conclusion: no mechanical cause, pastoral discretion advised. Translation: we're stumped. Good luck. The church, ever cautious, preferred to manage the narrative rather than admit to phenomena beyond their understanding. But Edward, left to grapple with the daily reality of the haunting, began a desperate, whispered dialogue with the unseen. In the margin of a sermon, his handwriting growing increasingly frantic, he scribbled, "Is the woman alone? 1 knock. Is she bound here? 2 knocks." That cryptic scribble, a silent conversation with the unknown, kept him awake more than any ghost. It was a desperate attempt to understand, to find meaning in the chaos that had consumed his sacred space. By 1948, the relentless presence had taken its toll. Langenhoe Church, once a vibrant hub of community life, saw its attendance halve. The faithful, once steadfast, now found excuses to stay home, their fear outweighing their devotion. Farmers, returning home late from the fields, reported seeing lights inside the church at midnight, flickering erratically as if a spectral service was being held. Edward, once a robust and optimistic man, now looked like he hadn't slept since the Blitz, his face etched with exhaustion and a profound weariness. The weight of the unexplained pressed down on him, a burden no theological training could prepare him for. Celia, his wife, a woman of artistic sensibility, found herself increasingly drawn to the church tower, a place of quiet contemplation. But she would emerge with sudden, inexplicable nosebleeds, her body reacting to an unseen force. And Joan, their daughter, once so full of life, began to draw. Her sketches, found years later, were chilling. Women in grey dresses, their faces devoid of features, no mouths, just endless vacant eyes. Those disturbing drawings, tucked inside the organ bench like forgotten prayers, were discovered in 2016, a silent testament to the profound psychological impact of Langenhoe's enduring mystery on the Merriweather family. The church was not just haunted, it was haunting them. In 1951, the Society for Psychical Research, an organization dedicated to the scientific study of paranormal phenomena, dispatched one of their most renowned investigators, Dr. Nandor Fodor. Fodor, a Hungarian-American parapsychologist, was no charlatan. He was the same meticulous researcher who would later famously poke around the Enfield poltergeist case. He spent 5 nights in Langenhoe Church, armed with the latest technology of the era, a reel-to-reel recorder, a thermometer, and an open yet critical mind. The tapes he recorded were chilling. Amidst the static and the ambient sounds of the old church, a faint whisper could be discerned, repeating the name Edward plain as day. And then a distinct metallic scraping sound, as if something heavy was being dragged across stone, a sound that defied explanation in an empty church. Fodor's verdict, delivered with academic caution, was nonetheless startling. Localized poltergeist activity, probably linked to the disturbed graves beneath the nave. He theorized that the energy of the deceased, combined with the unique geological conditions, created a focal point for these phenomena. Of course, skeptics offered their own, more grounded explanations. In 1953, a cracked sewer pipe was discovered under the chancel. Methane gas, they argued, could cause lamps to sway, create strange odors, and even produce auditory hallucinations. A perfectly rational explanation, they insisted. But methane, however potent, doesn't tap out Morse code, nor does it conjure the image of a grey lady or whisper a reverend's name. The rational explanations, while plausible for isolated incidents, failed to account for the sheer breadth and persistence of the phenomena at Langenhoe. The mystery, for many, remained stubbornly intact. The year 1959 dawned cold and bleak. The church, once a beacon of faith, now felt like a tomb, its ancient stones saturated with an unseen presence. On January 12th, a violent storm raged across the Essex marshes. "Lightning strike," said the fire brigade, their voices strained with the effort of battling the inferno. Yet the lightning rod, installed with great care in 1954, remained perfectly intact, a silent, mocking sentinel against the raging flames. The blaze, they noted, started directly above the Grey Lady's favorite pew, as if ignited by an unseen hand. The nave roof, a testament to centuries of craftsmanship, collapsed in a shower of sparks and burning timbers, its ancient timbers consumed by the inferno. Miraculously, the tower, the oldest part of the church, stood defiant, a charred sentinel against the night sky. Edward Merriweather, his face streaked with soot and tears, stood coatless in the churchyard, watching the embers drift like lazy fireflies, the culmination of 21 years of torment. Someone swore they heard him whisper, a voice roar with exhaustion and perhaps a strange relief. "She's gone." That night, for the first time in 21 years, the rhythmic, insistent knocking stopped. Was it destruction, or was it a release? Edward Merriweather resigned within the month, his spirit broken, his faith, perhaps, irrevocably altered. The family, seeking solace in anonymity, slipped away to a quiet Norfolk parish where bells behaved and the dead rested undisturbed. Edward died in 1974, a quiet man, haunted by unspoken memories. His obituary, a brief notice in the local paper, never once mentioned Langenhoe, as if that chapter of his life had been erased, too painful to recall. The church was rebuilt, not with the ancient flint that had stood since 1270, but with modern red brick, a stark contrast to its former self. It was a practical decision, but perhaps also an unconscious attempt to sever ties with the past, to build anew on ground that had seen too much. Yet, the legacy of Langenhoe persists. Locals still quicken their steps past the Lich Gate after twilight, their eyes darting nervously towards the rebuilt structure. They say orchids won't grow on fresh graves in the churchyard, a strange botanical anomaly. And every October, without fail, the tower clock stops at 8:17 p.m. The precise minute the Grey Lady first appeared, a silent, mechanical echo of a spectral visitation. The story of Langenhoe Church is not just a historical curiosity, it is a living, breathing mystery. Last month, I camped out for 3 nights in the churchyard, armed with nothing fancy, a thermal camera, a cheap audio recorder, and an open mind. I sought not to prove, but to experience, to listen to the whispers of the past. On the second night, at precisely 3:14 a.m., the chancel, the very spot where the Grey Lady had appeared, experienced a sudden, dramatic temperature drop, 6 degrees in half a minute. The air turned damp, heavy, like breathing salt, a palpable shift in the atmosphere. I asked, my voice barely a whisper, in the profound silence, "Are you still here?" On the raw audio file, which I've linked below, you'll hear it. 3 soft, distinct knocks. No edits, no reverb, just the sound, clear as day. You decide what it means. Across England, a staggering 63% of pre-1600 churches report at least one regular haunting claim. Why? Why do these sacred spaces seem to be such potent magnets for the spectral? Partly, it's because churches weren't just for Sunday best. For centuries, they were the heart of the community. Courts, hospitals, public notice boards, places where life and death intertwined daily. Grief, joy, despair, and hope soaked into the very stones, leaving an indelible energetic imprint. Add to that the long echoes of ancient architecture, odd heat pockets created by centuries of candle soot, and the low hum of infrasound, frequencies below human hearing. And you've got a cosmic amplifier for things we haven't invented detectors for yet. Churches are not just buildings, they are repositories of human experience, places where the veil between worlds might indeed be thinner. The Catholic Church, with its millennia of experience grappling with the spiritual and the supernatural, has a surprisingly nuanced approach to such phenomena. Officially, every claim of the preternatural lands on a bishop's desk. If deemed credible, it can filter up to the congregation for the causes of saints, or in more unsettling cases, to an appointed exorcist. Their process is rigorous, almost scientific in its methodology. A doctor, a psychiatrist, and a theologian weigh in, seeking natural explanations first. Mental illness, fraud, environmental factors, all are meticulously investigated. Only when every rational, scientific, or psychological explanation fails, when all earthly causes are exhausted, do they cautiously tag it preternatural, acknowledging something beyond the ordinary. Langenhoe Church, for all its documented phenomena, never reached Rome. Perhaps the local diocese preferred to contain the unsettling truth. But the file, I'm told, remains sealed in the diocesan archives, not to be opened until 2059. Set a reminder if you dare. The Church, it seems, has its own secrets, its own lingering questions about the boundaries of the known world. Last week, I asked our subscribers for their theories on Langenhoe, for their own attempts to make sense of the inexplicable. The responses were fascinating, a testament to the human desire to understand the unknown. Here are the top 3, each offering a different lens through which to view the mystery. The Grey Lady is Mary Harker. This theory suggests the spectral woman is Mary Harker, a local woman tragically drowned in the marshes in 1883. Her grave, according to old parish maps, sits squarely under the chancel, directly beneath where the Grey Lady appeared. Is she bound to the place of her untimely end, seeking solace or release? Edward's own guilt. Some believe the poltergeist activity wasn't an external entity, but a manifestation of Reverend Merriweather's own repressed guilt or psychological distress. This is a classic case of recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, RSPK, where intense emotional energy unconsciously affects the environment. Was Edward, a man of faith, unknowingly creating his own torment? Ley line. Energy. A more esoteric theory posits that the Church straddles a powerful ley line, an invisible energy current crisscrossing the Earth. The knocking, they suggest, could be geological stress, releasing electromagnetic burps that manifest as paranormal phenomena. Is Langenhoe a natural amplifier for unseen energies? Pick your favorite or offer your own. Tell me why I'm wrong, or why one theory resonates more than the others. The beauty of these mysteries is that they invite us all to become detectives, to piece together the fragments of truth. So, ancient church or poltergeist hub? Perhaps both. The walls of Langenhoe Church remember what the rest of us would rather forget. They hold the echoes of centuries of prayer, of grief, of unexplained phenomena. They stand as a silent testament to the thin veil between our world and whatever lies beyond. If you're ever on the Essex marshes after dark, if you find yourself drawn to the quiet desolation of that landscape, pass the Lich Gate, nod to the tower clock, and listen. Listen closely. You might just hear it. 3 knocks, a pause, 3 more. Edward Merriweather endured 21 years of that rhythmic insistence, that constant reminder of the unseen. The question is, could you? Subscribe for next week's chilling dive into the Black Forest School, where the chalkboards write their own homework, and the lessons are far from ordinary. Until then, keep your questions open, your mind curious, and your flashlight charged. The world is full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered.